Janmadhyasya yato nivyat taratas chate swavigyaswarat
Janmadhyasya yatam vayalitaratas chate swavigyaswarat
Tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye muyantya surayaha
Tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye mujanticha suraya
Tejo varimidam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo nisha
Tejo varimidam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo nisha
Damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi
Dhamna svena sada nirhasta kuhakam satyam param dhimahi.
O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O all-pervading personality Godhead,
O all-pervading personality of God,
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause of all causes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It's he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge unto the heart
the
of
original
Brahmaji.
living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations.
Of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Or water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Only because of him do the material universe.
Temporarily manifested by reactions of the three modes of nature.
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although
I
they are.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Who is eternal existence in the transcendental abode.
Which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute
Dharma
truth.
pujita kaitravotcha.
Dharma prajita kaitavatra.
Paramo nimatsaranam satam.
Paramo nirmasaranam satam.
Vedyam vastavamatra vastu.
Vedyam vastavamatra vastu.
Shivadam tapatrayon mulanam.
Shivadam taputrayam mulanam.
Srimad Bhagvatam Mahamuni Krite.
Srimad Bhagavatam Mahamuni.
Kim va parir ishvaraha.
Kim va parir ishvaraha.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Sadyo hridi avarudyate tra.
Krite bihi sususavistakshanat.
Krite bihi sususavistakshanat.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth.
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth.
Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by great sage Vyasadeva
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
Is sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
as soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
The Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kapaturur galitam phalam.
Nigama kapaturur
Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam.
Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam.
Muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha.
Muhur aho rasika bhuvibhavakaha.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam.
The mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit of the desired truth, the Vedic literatures.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
Although
tasteful.
its nectarine juice was already relishable for all.
Although its nectarine juice was already relishable for all.
Including liberated souls.
Including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna.
Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantaksto hi bhadrani.
Hridyantasto hi bhadrani.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures.
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures.
Or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
Or to hear from him directly from the Bhagavad Gita.
is itself righteous activity.
It's self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart.
acts as a best-wishing friend,
Acts as best wishing friend.
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
And purifies the devotee who constantly engages in
Nasta
hearing.
prayesu abhadresu
Staprayeshvabhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttam sloke
Bhagavati Uttam Sloke
bhaktir bhavati naistaki.
Bhakti Bhavati Nasti.
In this way,
In this,
a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
in this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam,
and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service to the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhavo
Tada Rajastamo Bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye
Kamalobhadayasya
Chaitatarinabhidam
Chaitaitaranavidam
Stitvam Sattve Prasiddhiti.
Stitam Sadvai Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional
one
service,
becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion of
and
ignorance.
thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanna manasu
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogata
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangha Sajayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When all these impurities are wiped away,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya
Shiyante Chasya Karmani
Chiyante Chasya
Krista
Karmani
Evat Manishvare.
Drusta Evatmaneshwari.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the hardness of the material
and
affection
enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Assumption Samagrama,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute true personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna, from devotee in Krishna consciousness,
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, verse number 37. Pibanti ye Bhagavata Atmana Satam
Pibanti ye Bhagavata Atmanasatam
Katam Ritam Shravana Pute Susambritam
Gatam Ritam Shravanam Bhutishu Sambritam
Punanti Te Vishaya Vidusita Sayan
Punanti Devi Shaya Vistusitasya
Rajanti Tacharana Saroruhantikam.
Rajanti Tascharana Saruruhantikam.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. The sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in the exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by the illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milk, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc., in sufficient quantity to feed and care for the human race of the world as well as the living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagvatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Katam Ritam mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of the personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general, in all parts of the world, will be able to live a peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of the Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc., are all pleasing, and because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavana, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by the constant hearing of the messages of the Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Sukadeva Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavana, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of Bhakti Yoga, directly accepted, as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of the transcendental message of the Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without one's attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virat conception of the Lord. And by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee, meaning a false devotee. For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purports of the second canto, second chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Lord in the Heart. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. So there's a very interesting verse at the end of the fourth chapter that says, Ajnaschadadanasya samsayatma vinasyati nayam lokosti na paro na sukham samsayatmanaha. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness, they fall down. For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. So basically, at the end of the purport, Prabhupada says that, and by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo-devotee or false devotee. For such an impostor, there's no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. So, and in the purport, Prabhupada says, out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. The Bhagavad Gita is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures, and some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. And even though others may have faith in the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they do not believe in or worship the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. Out of all the above-mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and His revealed word find no good in this world nor in the next. For them, there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of revealed scriptures with faith and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge can help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a major, let's say, suggestion by Prabhupada that, first of all, he explains why people are suffering. I think we can all admit that there are many people suffering today in all the continents of this earth planet. And especially our, not especially, but acutely the Indian subcontinent is suffering today. In fact, Sridham Mayapur has been put in complete lockdown. Very few people are allowed in, and most of the devotees are not encouraged to go out. And there's very strict restrictions on how many people can be in the temple at one time. 50 people. They usually have, 2,000-3,000 people in the temple room. So you can imagine how much that's going to inhibit their abilities to do things. And they have to constantly clean every surface in the temple and in the ashrams. Nobody is allowed in the brahmachari ashrams that's not a resident. And all kinds of rules, are being thrown at them now by the government and by the GBC. So we see there's a lot of suffering. And in all the continents of this world. And Prabhupada says the sufferings of human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. So there you are. So now, are the devotees suffering? Well, the real devotees are not suffering because they know the value of simple living and high thinking. And Prabhupada explains certain things in a letter to Rupanuga, March 14th, 1969. He says, he's talking about a devotee named Gaur Sundar. He says, such a nice, intelligent, qualified boy. He has to work hard 12 hours simply for his subsistence. I think there are many instances like that. So this is not material advancement. You call it capitalist advancement. And the reaction for such advancement is communism. Such movement is simply suppressed in your country. But actually the reaction is this. So the Western type of civilization, industrialism and capitalism, is no material advancement. It is material exploitation. When one gets the bare necessity of life, namely peaceful home, sumptuous eating, necessary sex life, and feeling of security, then it is called material advancement. in the absence of such 4 preliminary necessities of life, it is not at all material advancement. Just try to understand. According to Vedic civilization, a man is supposed to be rich when he has got sufficient grains and cows. Here we have neither sufficient grains or cows, but you have sufficient quantity of papers only, meaning paper money, falsely thinking that it is money. When there is some catastrophe, this bunch of papers will neither supply milk or grain. They will be seen only, and the man will starve. So, this is a fact. This is absolutely a fact. This happened in Germany. After World War I, there was so much inflation that you had to have a wheelbarrow to carry all the bills of Deutschmarks to buy a loaf of bread. There was so much inflation. You had to pay thousands and thousands of Deutschmarks just to buy bread. See? So don't think that this can't happen. It's happened already. And it can repeat itself very easily. So, in another instance, Prabhupada, in the Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, verse number 12. It's a very nice verse. These are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. 1. Truthfulness. 2. Mercy. 3. Austerity, meaning observing fasts on certain days of the month. And then next, bathing twice a day. Next, tolerance. Next, determination between right and wrong. Next, control of the mind. Next, control of the senses. Next, non-violence. Next, celibacy. Then charity. Then reading of scripture. Then simplicity. Then satisfaction. Then rendering service to saintly persons. Then gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements. And observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society. Then remaining silent and grave and avoiding unnecessary talk. Next, considering whether one is the body or the soul. Next, distributing food equally to all living entities, both men and animals. Next, seeing every soul, especially in the human form, as a part of the Supreme Lord. And next, hearing about the activities and instructions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the shelter of the saintly persons, and chanting about these activities and instructions, and always remembering these activities and instructions, and trying to render service. Next, performing worship. Next, offering obeisances. Next, becoming a servant. Next, becoming a friend. And surrendering one's whole self. O King Yudhisthira, these 30 qualifications must be acquired in the human form of life. Simply by acquiring these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, he says, everyone should be taught to become truthful. Similarly, everyone should be taught to be merciful. And everyone should observe fasting on certain days of the month. Everyone should bathe twice a day, cleanse his teeth and body externally, and cleanse his mind internally by remembering the holy name of the Lord. The Lord is one, whether one is Hindu, Muslim, or Christian. Therefore, one should chant the holy name of the Lord regardless of differences in linguistic pronunciation. Also, everyone should be taught to be very careful not to discharge semen unnecessarily. This is very important for all human beings. If semen is not discharged unnecessarily, one becomes extremely strong in memory, determination, activity, and the vitality of one's bodily energy. Everyone should also be taught to be simple in thought and feeling and satisfied in body and mind. These are the general qualifications of a human being. There is no question of a secular state or an ecclesiastical state. Unless one is educated in the above mentioned 30 principles or qualities, there cannot be any peace ultimately. It is recommended. Shravanam kirtanam chasya, smaranam mahatam gate, sevejya manatir dasyam, sakyam atma samarpanam. Everyone should become a devotee of the Lord, because by becoming a devotee of the Lord, one automatically acquires the other qualities. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavat yakinchana sarvar gunas tatra samasate sata. Harava bhakta shyakuto mahad guna manoratana sati dhavato bahi. In one who has unflinching devotional service to Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, has no good qualifications, because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord. Bhagavatam 5.18.12. Our Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is all-embracing human civilization. All-embracing. Human civilization should take it very seriously and practice its principles for the peace of the world. Okay, so these are very precious instructions that we're getting. And if we can assimilate these, then we have a chance to have a happy, peaceful, productive life with full of vitality and positivity. And then in Srimad Bhagvatam 2.2.3, it says, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. So, Prabhupada is a minimalist. He is espousing simple living, high thinking, and keeping to a minimum our material needs, so we can maximize our contemplation and glorification and service to Krishna. So it says, the Bhagavata Dharma, or the cult of Srimad Bhagvatam, is perfectly distinct from the way of fruitive activities which are considered by the devotees to be merely a waste of time. The whole universe, or for that matter, all material existence, is moving on as Jagat, simply for planning business to make one's position very comfortable or secure, although everyone sees that this existence is neither comfortable nor secure and can never become comfortable or secure at any stage of development. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, meaning chasing after false things, are certainly madmen. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water, and fire. The buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of the three modes. Since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babble of sea waves. The great kings, leaders, and soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. The fruitive worker aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, and worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not at all interested in such false things. For them, it is all a waste of time, since every second of human life is important. An unenlightened man should be very careful to utilize time very cautiously. 1 second of human life wasted in the vain research of planning for happiness in the material world can never be replaced, even if one spends millions of coins of gold. Therefore, the transcendentalist desiring freedom from the clutches of Maya, or the illusory activities of life, is warned herewith not to be captivated by the external features of fruitive actors. Human life is never meant for sense gratification, but for self-realization. Srimad Bhagvatam instructs us solely on this subject from the very beginning to the end. Human life is simply meant for self-realization. The civilization which aims at this utmost perfection never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares men only to accept the bare necessities of life or to follow the principles of the best use of a bad bargain. Our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains because the living entity is actually spirit, and material advancement of the living entity is and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. Human life is intended for the realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gift without diversion of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. The materialistic advancement of civilization is called the civilization of the demons, which ultimately ends in wars and scarcity. The transcendentalist is specifically warned herewith to be fixed in mind, so that even if there is difficulty in plain living and high thinking, he will not budge even an inch from his stark determination. For a transcendentalist, it is a suicidal policy to be intimately in touch with the sense gratifiers of the world, because such a policy will frustrate the ultimate gain of life. Sukadeva Goswami met Maharaj Parikshit when the latter felt a necessity for such a meeting. It is the duty of a transcendentalist to help persons who desire real salvation and to support the cause of salvation. One might note that Sukadeva Goswami never met Maharaj Parikshit while he was ruling as a great king. For a transcendentalist, the mode of activities is explained in the next sloka. Well, there are so many statements now Prabhupada is making about simple living, high thinking, living with the bare necessities of life, and we don't want to dwell day after day on this, but Prabhupada further says in the in Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 21st verse, Nirasir yata chitatma tyakva sarva parigraha sariram kevalam karma kurvan napnoti kilbasa. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. There it is, Bhagavad Gita. What is bare necessities of life? That is the statement in Sanskrit. Tyaktva sarva parigraha sariram kevalam karma. So, giving up all sense of proprietorship over all possessions, in keeping body and soul together only, working to keep the body and soul together only. Such a person is never affected by sinful reactions. So this is akarmic life. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, a Krishna-conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme, and therefore the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not his by choice, but is chosen for him by the Supreme and is done only through his agency, or the Lord's agency. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna-conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine, as a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance. Similarly, a Krishna-conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A cruel proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession, yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna-conscious person fully engaged in self-realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not, therefore, become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his actions. So, here we have statement after statement Prabhupada makes, and of course this verse today, in which he clearly says that the highest perfectual thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely, sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagvatam. Well, that's what we're doing now, right? That's what we're doing every day. We're sufficiently, well, actually, I can't say sufficiently because it should be morning, afternoon, and evening, but almost sufficiently hearing Bhagavatam. And it says, the supply source is complete, and only a little energy of the human being is required to get his necessities into the proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plants for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. And the highest perfectional thinking for human society is suggested here by Sukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in this age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. So this is knowledge. This is real knowledge. And then Prabhupada also explains that the Goswamis, they did not have computers. They did not have telephones or cell phones. They did not live in well-furnished homes. They slept under a tree, and a different tree every night. They ate hardly once a day. They slept hardly at all. But they produced the greatest literature in the history of the world. What a tremendous contribution to humanity. And we're taking benefit of it now by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and then later on, when we're advanced enough, we can read also the literature of the Goswamis, which are extremely elevated scriptures. So, and they did this without suits and coats and ties and shoes and things like that. They lived very simple life. Very, very simple life. Reduced their material needs and increased to a maximum their spiritual activities. So we're not on that level, but we can at least learn from them the value of minimizing material needs, maximizing spiritual activity. So we'll stop right there. That's if we want to be happy. Let's put it like that. Haribol. Happy, prosperous, and healthy. Or just like our festival was, our festival, the Veg Fest, the theme was healthy, happy, and prosperous. Right. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions? I was a healthy, wealthy, and wise. Or healthy, happy, and wise. Healthy, happy, and wise. Okay. Thank you very much.